welcome everybody. Um, Dre, if I can call you Dre, or do you want me to call you Harikiri the whole time?
Dre is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. What's good?
And this is Clubhouse is new to both of us as well, so this is the first time we're up here on like main stage. So happy to have RADII give us any direction throughout this process. But I mean, I see there's a bunch of people in the room, but I know for sure there's different levels of understanding the whole China hip hop scene from everybody. So I mean, we can only give our best perspective. So I figured we start by, just talking about how we got to China and what we saw as far as the scene here at that time. So, I mean, I know I got here before Dre did, but I didn't jump right into the scene. So I'll tell a little bit about my story. I got here in the end of 2000 and 2000, beginning of 2001, and I was in Beijing at the time. I pretty much was in Beijing for the first 10 years of living in China, and started discovering the local scene probably around 2004, 2005. And when I say the local scene, it was, to call it a scene is already almost an overstatement, because it was really, really, really small. But some things, when they're still really small, I feel like are very pure too. So that scene is something that I think would be kind of hard to find something exactly like that here right now. Not to say that what we have here now is not pure, but just a different kind of vibe. Yeah. And then, and then started doing the radio show in '06, which, I don't know, when did you get here, Dre?
My first time in China, I think, was like 8 years ago. Wow, time has flown. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy to even say that. But, but I didn't really get into hip hop until I moved to Chengdu, which was about 6 years ago. 5, 6 years ago.
So you came to Beijing first as well, right?
Yeah, so going way back to the beginning, I studied Chinese at university in London, and then the second year of my degree, I had to go to Beijing. Well, that was kind of the reason why I wanted to study Chinese anyway, was the chance to go on holiday. And then I realized it wasn't a holiday, it was a really, really serious learning curve. But yeah, I ended up in China in my second year, and yeah, was doing parties and stuff. Nothing really related to hip hop. I was doing like studying and doing electronic music back then.
Was doing music in China part of the plan at all when you came?
Actually, never part of the plan. It's kind of always been the thing that I'm passionate about, but I never had it in my sights to do it for money, if that makes sense. And then, kind of everything changes suddenly. Like even,
but you definitely had China in your sights, though, huh?
That definitely, but I feel like it's kind of more related to the way that I feel like a lot of that black culture is fascinated by China and Asian culture in general, and I think a lot of that has led me here, like kung fu movies and all of this, like cool stuff that we see that we don't understand. And then I just kind of wanted to explore it much more deeply, get to speak a language and understand a culture that we don't really get to hear about truthfully in the West. So that was kind of what piqued my intrigue, just to be able to go to Chinatown and really understand what's going on there, even though I still can't understand. But yeah, it's a different world. So I just wanted to make sure that I could have a go at understanding, and yeah, pretty much.
I think what you just said about the interest in other cultures, I think that's like a vice versa type of thing that's going on here. Just a lot of
Yeah,
people's interest here in hip hop probably come from that same sort of curiosity,
yeah,
which we'll definitely get into. But when you got here, you jumped straight into the electronic scene, right? Did the electronic scene like appeal to you at that time? Is that how you got involved, or was that already something
so
that you
I
were
think
building on?
when I first got to Beijing, there weren't actually any parties except for like there was a big drum and bass party. The syndicate was running that already.
Mm,
So when I arrived, I wanted to do something that was kind of showing different sides of music that I wasn't hearing in Beijing at the time. So like dubstep hadn't really blown up then, and all sorts of other like UK music. So I started doing a party, which really took off, especially when all of the other kids that were in my school kind of, when everyone came over, and yeah, it just became a big snowball, really. I think by the end of my first
mm,
year, that really is what enabled me to be able to come back again, because I think the parties and the whole vibe that I brought to Beijing at the time was something new, and yeah, it kind of yeah, it made a lot of things change actually. It brought a lot of people together that weren't really, I think, didn't really realize they were interested in the same kind of music. So it's
right,
nice.
right. I feel like at that time, not just in China, but probably uh, all over the world, where there was this type of music scene. I think there was like that's when like electronic and hip hop kind of started fusing together.
Yeah,
Cause
definitely.
yeah, cause we were doing parties at that time as well, and you know the type of music that we play um, would be more and more a mix of all kinds of electronic music plus all different types of hip hop as well.
Yeah,
But I would definitely say the Beijing hip hop scene at that time was still very 90s, um,
yeah. I, I
and
felt like
like distinctly East Coast or West Coast too. Like, yeah,
yeah, yeah. I felt like Beijing really stuck to its guns hip hop wise, and that it's just very very old school. Like sticks to kind of the roots of hip hop as opposed to anything else. But I think a lot of that also comes down to the like Beijing accent really suiting that style as well.
yeah. I mean, one thing is the accent. I think it also probably has to do with the culture of the people there. Like just the stuff about Chinese culture that they are attracted to is also about that. The original. You know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
versus Shanghai, where I'm at right now, it's all about the new.
yeah. No, it makes sense. Makes sense. Hmm. Sorry, I think my
So
saving
when
is
you
messing
finished
up.
when you finished studying, is that when you decided to go to Chengdu and like why Chengdu? How did you come up with that decision?
So after my year in Beijing, I went back to London, finished my degree, and then after my degree was locked in, I decided to do an Asia tour, like just DJing and getting to know all the other places that I never had a chance to go to. And then on that tour was the first time that I went to Chengdu. And of
Mm,
everywhere that I went, Chengdu was like the most memorable city just for like I'd never really experienced anything like it out here. It was like for a city I'd never heard of or anything. I was surprised at how big it was. The party was by far one of the most fun. And like the vibe of the city, it kind of reminded me of being weirdly, it's like felt like I was in Jamaica. It's really crazy because everyone's so chill. Even though there's no water around the city or anything, but there's this particular vibe that just really, really stuck with me. So yeah, after the
This
tour,
is 2015.
I think so. I, I think so. Maybe the year before. I've actually my dates are completely confused right now. I think I should have made a should have made a sheet with all these key dates. But yeah, so yeah, after the tour, went back in London. I decided like, wow, actually, there's so many things happening here. Like, I've graduated in Chinese, but my Chinese isn't solid yet, so I really should go back to China. And especially from that tour, I realized that Beijing has kind of changed from the Beijing that I left when I was studying abroad, doing my year abroad. And Shanghai kind of feels a bit like it's kind of a version of London. So I didn't really need to leave London to go to China's London. So Chengdu it was, because it just felt like something completely different, and also perfect timing. My friend Lana, who was um, my DJ for my Chengdu show, and she told me about this really cool group of musicians, like rappers, who were doing music that really resonates with what I was doing at the time. And I was really just getting into trap music then. And then that group just happened to be High Brothers. So she sent me a lot of their early stuff, and it's like literally exactly the stuff I was looking for, which I couldn't find anyone else in China making that kind of music. So yeah, when I decided, that kind of just helped me decide, like, yeah, Chengdu's a spot for me, especially getting to hear the rest of CDC, like hearing what TY was doing, what Shady was doing. It just, yeah, it was a no-brainer that I could move to Chengdu and not be musically isolated. So yeah, that's where it all began.
Hey, Harikiri, this is Peggy Lou. Welcome to Clubhouse. Welcome, Wes Chen. Welcome, RADII
Hi.
China. I just wanted to reset the room a little bit every 10 minutes or so to let people know that they can ping people into the Clubhouse room right now by helping us push the plus button at the bottom of the screen and get all of your friends in if you're interested in learning about China's hip-hop revolution and evolution and how it's taking China's youth by the storm. And Harikiri and Wes Chen, can I have you start, help bring people who may not be familiar with what's happening in China into China's scene by explaining who is Higher Brothers and how does Chengdu play a part in the hip hop evolution of China? Let's set the scene.
Hmm. Okay, Wes, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I mean, to what you were just saying there right now, the fact that it was a stop on a tour of a show that made you want to move to Chengdu, that's crazy. First of all, I just want to say that. Because, I mean, I moved from Beijing to Shanghai now, and kind of the same thing. Like, I saw the scene bubbling up here. Um, but to what Peggy was saying right now, the fact that when you got to Chengdu, you pretty much immediately stumbled upon High Brothers and CC in them. Um, did they make you want to be more involved in the hip hop scene, like turning from electronic to hip hop? I mean, hip hop was becoming, like I said earlier, already very electronic at that time.
Yeah, I think so. With twofold answer, which hopefully will begin to answer Peggy's other question. But so yeah, at that time I was already, like I said, moving into trap music from doing just purely underground weird bass music, and from just making music with them, they didn't have a producer. They'd never worked with someone who just focuses on making like music. So I kind of filled a gap for them, and they filled a gap for me because I just left the UK and no people, there were no people around me, like no grime MCs or anyone who was really able to write beats. So yeah, it was mutually beneficial working with each other and also like just helping me not feel like I'm alone musically. That was really important. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, as we started making music and then they got signed and everything started to bubble up around them basically. And then they blew up. But the whole hip hop focus for me wasn't in actually an intention. It's literally once they blew up, everything I was doing just changed. Like I couldn't really do any shows in China without a bunch of hip hop fans coming. So then I had to start learning how to play hip hop in my sets because I was still playing drum and bass and dubstep and all this other mad stuff. So yeah, basically, yeah, High Brothers became, I've not even became, they are the most important export like for hip hop music, urban music that China's ever had, I think. So they're the ones that most foreigners know about and who have come back and like yeah, I think everyone in hip hop, all the youth in China are really proud of them for what they've done.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like yeah, for if there's people in the room, to who have little to no like understanding of what's been going on in China as far as this hip hop scene, and quite possibly don't even know who Higher Brothers are.
Mm,
That is possible.
definitely
Um,
possible.
yeah, I can sort of from a earlier timeline standpoint um, talk about what Dre just said about why they're so important. I think the whole trap and hip hop phenomenon was something that was like happening in hip hop scenes and music scenes all over the world at that time, and it was already a conversation in a lot of places with the hip hop scene about this new sort of style of hip hop,
Yeah,
and in China, it just happened to be the Howard brothers and so them and also like the Chongqing guys, the Gosh guys, who really like went deep into this style, and
yeah,
for some reason the dialect plus like how you said the culture, just the vibe of the people in that region, it just meshed. It just fit really well,
yeah,
and which also led to me being involved with at that time in to do the Vice doc, trapping
yeah,
in Sichuan. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
because we
yeah,
just saw that this is something it fits like we could not have imagined, you know, it fit. Trap being something that came from Atlanta, it already had like a different type of flavor to it than
yeah,
90s traditional East Coast or West Coast hip hop. So there was definitely something about like I don't know the warm weather, the food, just the lifestyle over there. So yeah, the fact that you know China, a region in China, was able to find that same connection was crazy. And I think a lot of that has to do with timing, and you know what I mean. Like there's a lot of like
yeah,
uncontrolled stuff that was in play there.
yeah. Definitely, definitely. It's pretty funny how like also like Sichuan being technically south, like this and Atlanta being south, just how yeah, the style of
Mm,
music seems to be what
right.
Southern is like. But yeah,
Yeah. Not near any ocean.
yeah, it's pretty mad. It's pretty mad. But I think yeah, there's a lot about the Sichuanese accent that kind of lends for it to suit trap music really well. It allows them to flow different, and also I think just the way that actually yeah, just the way that the dialect sounds really, really, really fits with the what like southern like American trap music was doing. It blends really, really well.
Right. Right. Besides this whole like factor of just like all the right elements in the right place in the right temperature and then just happening right there. I think another key element to making that soup so good was the internet was sort of like popping off at that time too. So I mean, like from again taking it back to like when I first came here to what it is now, I think like I said, the scene when I got here in 2001 was tiny, and now with the internet and all that, we've got like billions of hip hop fans in China now.
Yeah,
Which
definitely.
part of the internet at that time, and then which also brought on like these reality shows.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse, man. The shows are a double-edged sword for sure, for sure. But yeah, I mean, what do you feel? What do you think about them?
The reality shows.
Yeah,
Okay, let me. I think we need to give some context to like
context.
maybe someone for if there's people who don't live in China. Maybe people have seen the Netflix show. It's Rhythm and Flow. It's basically an American Idol, uh,
Yeah,
but a hip hop version of it. Um, and the first season of this show was in, I believe, 2017,
so we're talking about Rap of China here right
in the
now,
second half
right?
of 2017. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
If there's people familiar with Korean or K-pop or Korean hip hop scene, the whole concept kind of came from there as well.
Like the show me the money kind of workflow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I would say that the rappers in China who signed up for the first season were were kind of brave because they didn't know, you know, if this would bring anything to them at all because nobody
Yeah,
knew it hadn't been done here before. But as it progresses, like now it's been two, three, this year will be the fourth season, and last year there was actually two other uh, similar reality shows.
yeah,
It's almost like people going on not so much to showcase themselves anymore, but with their eyes on the bag that it will bring after they come off of the
yeah,
show, which which sort of changed it a little bit. Um,
yeah. It's
but
that's kind of what I mean with saying it's a double-edged sword. Like as soon as the first Rap of China, these kind of TV shows kind of led to the explosion of hip hop music in mainstream culture in China. However, like where we are now is become almost the only way for people to blow up. Like, well, that's what people feel like at least, because it's quick and it's really, really potent the exposure that these TV shows are giving to these budding new artists. But it's kind of yeah, it's a catch-22 because a lot of these shows lock people into big contracts that they don't allow them to maneuver very well. And for example, if you go on the show, sign a contract, and you don't blow up, if you don't make it into the top five, then no one can really work with you because you're in a contract already. So yeah, there are a lot of a lot of issues. So
right. I mean, that's part of it, and I think that's part of also a lot of music industry everywhere.
yeah,
Um, but I think uh, another thing about these reality shows is though, like, and the reason that they're so big here, as opposed to maybe in other countries where hip hop is already a big thing, is the whole idol culture that exists here.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we're ready for a reset.
I think so too.
So this is a little bit of Bohan Phoenix, who I was really happy to become friends with in LA when RADII China brought Bohan Phoenix to a show, and he's from Chengdu also, but now lives in Brooklyn, New York. And this is a collaboration with
Moved to LA.
HARIKIRI. Oh, he moved to LA. Awesome.
Hey, yeah.
He's a bilingual rapper, really talented, plays the piano. And HARIKIRI, maybe you can talk a little bit about how you created that collaboration and give us an update on Bohan. I miss him. And I would love to
I was just
actually
thinking
know
the same.
also the comparison of numbers between Rhythm and Flow and then Rap of China in terms of number of viewers.
Mm.
Oh wow, I think
Right. We have a few numbers here from the internet. When Rap of China first aired in 2017, it got 100 million views in the first 4 hours,
yeah,
and now the view count is up to in the billions. Um,
yeah,
so, and this is somewhere and this is in China, so somewhere where people don't really know about hip hop versus America, where like rhythm and flow is based, where everybody knows what hip hop is and they understand the culture and they know about all the different aspects of it. Doesn't necessarily get that many views. So
yeah.
3.5 million for rhythm and flow is what I'm getting here,
Compared
which is crazy.
to,
So
Elaine just gave us Rap
compared
of
to
China as 1 billion viewers in the 6th episode. Is that crazy? 1 billion viewers in one episode.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. It's pretty insane. Yeah.
That's
and
like
Wes
four.
and Drea, this is
I mean,
Brian. I want to jump in
it says
here.
a lot to like.
Yeah,
Okay, go for it, Brian.
yeah. Sorry. No. First of all, fascinating story, both of you, in terms of your time in China and the evolution of this whole industry. In light of these numbers, obviously it's blowing up. It's a hugely lucrative business now. Some of the artists have made lots of money just suddenly, and that is something you guys talked about in terms of the commercial influence, double-edged sword. But for Dre, someone who's been in this very early on, helping artists create and produce, how do you stay true to the art and the music in light of this? And related to that, what do you think it is that makes the Higher Brothers such a phenomenon globally? And how about the other Chinese artists that you've worked with, and what is it going to take to get many Higher Brother type phenomenons to emerge in the world?
It's quite a big selection of questions. I think the key actually is putting the music first. I think by making the music kind of by making music with the aim of getting famous or making money, everyone kind of loses. So the fans lose, the artists themselves lose, because it's kind of like polishing a turd, making something really quick just to yeah, just to make a quick buck usually means that people won't pay attention to it for too long. And I think that's kind of by keeping that as my focus, that's kind of how I've managed to keep making music that I think is fulfilling and that people still love. And I think most of the artists that come and find me, they're looking for that too, because I think most of the people who are in the industry on the back end also know that I turn down way more jobs than I accept. mainly because if I think it's gonna be bullshit, I won't do it, regardless of how much money it's worth. And yeah, I think that's really really important actually, that people stay true to themselves.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. How about the global sort of traction then when it comes to, say, the Higher Brothers? What do you think is the reasons they just suddenly became so popular? I mean, I know that they've been doing their stuff in China for years prior to kind of getting signed, but obviously you also were part of that sort of evolution.
Yeah, I think it was timing. I think like the world has never seen a cool Chinese rap group that is making music or was making music at the exact same level of quality as the American counterparts. And I think Higher was the first time the world has ever seen that, Chinese music can punch at exactly the same way as the West. And I think that's what kind of, they took the world by surprise with that. And I think the challenge now is like all the new artists, all the like budding rappers and singers that are coming out of China need to keep showing that actually they can make music that's at the same level, if not better, than all the Billboard chart toppers. That's really the goal. I think like my my actual pet peeve is whenever I hear shit like, oh yeah, it's good enough for China. Like I don't believe any of that sentence is fair, because I think it's laced in kind of putting Chinese culture and the quality of what comes out of this country on a lower level than what's happening in the West. So I just tell everyone that works with me that actually, just if it can't compete with the West, we haven't finished. So yeah.
To jump in there, to what Brian was saying about how they blew up in the West, you got to give credit to RADII Rising for
Definitely
making that, for making that, for trying to make that happen. It was clearly in their plan to try to blow them up in the West, and they used their connections in the West with artists in the West through reaction videos, which were just starting at that time. Again, the internet, and the internet is also responsible for like more people being more basically open to new things in one standpoint, and in another standpoint, if these rappers in the West like it, then it must be good. You know what I mean? So like, there's definitely that effect too, which I think reaction videos at that time, had this type of effect. But definitely, RADII Rising played a key role in blowing them up in the West. And it is important to point out also that Higher Brothers, being as big as they are, never went on any of these reality shows. So that is also very noteworthy, because they didn't have to use that platform and play by those rules and to gain what they have right now.
Yeah.
And
they were actually
speaking of these reality shows, go for it. Go ahead.
Just to add, they were actually asked by a bunch of the shows, but I think they turned them down mainly just so that their whole flow and the road that they've been on this whole time doesn't get watered down, so that people can't say that their trajectory was completely influenced or in any way by these reality shows that everyone else in the country was going. So I think, yeah, they felt it really important to make sure that fans of theirs and like fans of hip hop culture in China realize that there is actually another way. It's just not easy.
Right. And they last year they never went on as contestants, but last year Masue Nono went on as judges. So shout out to them for jumping through the straight to the judge role. This year I hear there's going to be a new hip hop reality show out here, and it's completely based on female rappers,
Yeah, I've heard about
which
that
is
too.
yeah, slowly growing here as well. Um, Probably the most famous one came from the first reality show, which is Baba, also from Chengdu. Um, but now I understand Harikiri is working real closely with Vanita,
Hmm. Yep, yep,
and
yep, yep,
who's to
yep.
know who's going to come out of this show this year?
Yeah,
Shall we
I
listen to
think
some Vinida and
go
Harikiri?
for it, go for it.
热闹的更多，成熟的更多，世界不公平，敌人要出没，偏越不战胜，人丑化中国。当我越穿越远，越要越多不多了。
So I'm going to play a little Vava just because I really like my new swag. So you had mentioned Vava had really just been discovered on Rap of China. And I really like her wardrobe on this music video. So I'm going to play this, and then maybe you can also introduce to us some other female rappers that are on the way up, as well as just other bands that we should be watching out for. And if we don't take notes carefully, you can always turn to RADII China. On their website, they have the hottest artists, hip hop artists in China listed in articles. So here's Baba, my new swag.
I recall that Dre was talking about the artists and management, and we have actually one of the artist managers on in our clubhouse, but she's about to jump into another meeting. But I wanted to ask Dre and Wes, how are these artists managed in China? How are they sort of, what's that dynamic, the relationship, and what role do they play in kind of curating their development?
Mm, I think, well, me personally, I don't really have much to compare it to because, like I said, I only really got into hip hop since I moved to China. So I haven't really seen how managers work in the West. But, and also, I think, honestly, most management situations that I've seen here is really, I think, business managers, so helping the artists find ways to make money. So if the art isn't big, it's usually someone who's just actively plugging away and looking for like collaborative, like corporate collaborations or brand affiliations, things like that. If the artist is already big, then it's the other way around. It's kind of like they're acting more as a defender, so catching all of these different people who are trying to latch onto the artist, and kind of that manager would act as someone to protect their brand. That's pretty much my understanding. What about
Right.
you, Wes?
Yeah, I think to answer this question, I think there's actually like a wide range of artists in China, from ones that have become literally like top celebrities from going on these reality shows to people who refuse to go on the shows or not trying to go on the shows and like have carved out their own underground scene, to ones that and every level in between. So like I think the management situation is also spread throughout that spectrum as well. I definitely would like to mention a few artists, that maybe aren't as popular, especially overseas, but and maybe and have chosen not to go on these reality shows. So like one of them I feel like is the hardest working and most knowledgeable hip hop artist out here is AR, who definitely deserves a mention. He's been putting out his own album, which is self-produced, self-released, and he's going the whole. When you talk about management, he's going the whole route that Russ is going in America. So if anybody's been paying attention to that, he's been basically showing new artists, that you don't need to sign over everything to a major to believe in your art and you know, and work hard and pave your own route. I do want to mention, because this is Clubhouse, so you know, we're definitely want to hear from everyone in this room. I believe Peggy just opened up the hand raising function, so if people want to jump in with comments or questions, go ahead and hit that raise your hand, and we'll start taking questions from the crowd.
And please do, this is Clubhouse, so please do follow HARIKIRI or Dre and Wes Chen, and please follow RADII China with Brian and Elaine and Jake. And if you're interested in more China topic rooms, please follow me, Peggy Liu. If you hit the bell, then you'll get a notification anytime one of us goes on stage to speak or schedules a room. And for sure, there's going to definitely be more China-based music rooms. So welcome, Charlotte.
Hi, Peggy.
Do you have a
Can you
question?
hear me all right?
Hi,
Yes.
Charlotte.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for sharing. I learned a lot. And a short introduction of myself. I'm a college student from Emory, so I'm actually studying in Atlanta, but I'm in California this semester, being remote. I'm really a big hip hop fan, although I don't know much about Chinese hip hop. Like, I watch a lot of South Korean hip hop. And I have a question, is that, you know, I'm originally from Shanghai, so like I listen to some of the Shanghainese hip hop, but I'm just curious, like, how the dialect play in the diversity of Chinese hip hop, and also, you guys have talked a lot about like reality shows and how it impacted like the perspective of Chinese hip hop, and I'm just curious, like, what is the demographic of hip hop? Oh. Sorry, I'm just curious, like, what's
Well,
the
sorry, can
demographic?
you mute yourself, please? Because we're letting Charlotte talk right now. Thanks.
Thank you. I just have two other questions, like, what is the demographic information of the audience in general in China? And also, like, what do you guys think hip hop culture should be, or it should be better portrayed in like mainstream media? Or is there a difference between the hip hop, the underground hip hop scene, and also like the mainstream hip hop scene? Yeah, thank you so much.
Which one do we begin with?
Maybe
think
dialects?
so. Yeah, dialects is for me. I think is a easier one. I think the like dialects in China kind of they're so different that I think from a Western perspective they're almost like different languages. So like if Chinese is a language group, then the way I see it is each region dialect is like a different language. So Chinese language would be like European language, and the differences can be as vast as like Italian, French, and English. Like the differences between those three languages. For example, Shanghainese, Cantonese, and Sichuanese are vastly different. So just because you speak one doesn't necessarily mean you can instantly understand what's being said in the other. So obviously that will play a huge part in the way that artists are using the language musically. So like we said before, like I personally feel Beijing dialect lends towards you doing kind of the more roots hip hop classic kind of vibes. So like the Nas, Tupac, that kind of era of hip hop versus like Sichuanese is kind of sounds a little bit more slurred. So there's a lot of kind of chewing letters and consonants and vowels kind of move a little different, and the tone is a bit different. So I think it lends a lot more to doing trap. It feels a lot more natural, if that makes sense. It's not more effortless. Yeah.
Yeah. To jump in on the whole dialect conversation, I think there's also a sort of a north-south divide here as well, because Mandarin or Putonghua being the language that the entire country that understands and speaks, definitely has more reach and can be carried farther. And Sichuanese, even though it's kind of in the south, the dialect is still considered a northern dialect, so it still can be partly understood by people from other regions in the north, and pretty much the entire country, because everybody has to speak Putonghua, which is basic Mandarin. But if you go further into the south and you're talking about Cantonese, then you have a much smaller reach. So there are people in Guangdong province who are doing strictly Cantonese rap as well, and they might be able to sell out huge shows in those areas, but when they go north, it's a very noticeable difference as far as like who can, because if you don't really understand, it's hard to get down to it. So yeah, so this is a difference. It's much more like Europe than America, because people speak different, have different accents in English, but everybody can understand it. Yeah, and I almost forgot what her second question was.
Well, if I could just give some flow Clubhouse etiquette, if we can keep questions to one person, one question, we can move along a little bit, because we now have a stage of people who are dying to ask questions of HARIKIRI and Wes Chen. So maybe we can move on to our next special guest, Rita. Shuhong.
Oh yeah, hi. Hello everyone.
Hey Rita.
It's me already. Hey Wes and HARIKIRI. Long time no see. It's been I think almost 2 years since that time we met in Beijing at a panel,
at the bookworm.
hip-hop panel. But yeah, not like this one. Right. So yeah, I didn't really prepare anything, but yeah, as some of you might know that I used to have a Chinese rap column, RADII. So I already wrote a lot about Chinese hip-hop, even a brief history about it. So in case anyone is interested in the history of 2 decades or 3 decades, you can just go check it out on RADII. So I guess since I think I already know a little bit more than a lot of people here, so maybe they can ask some questions about some basic knowledge about Chinese hip hop, and then maybe we can discuss something I don't know, deeper or something bigger, the concept, what is hip hop, or is there any real hip hop in China now, or things like that.
That's a really good question. You just asked the great question of yourself. And actually, Rita, I'm really interested in asking you a question about this whole, I'm going to call it the taming of language. I mean, really, it's a question for all of you, but there's definitely, maybe you can set the scene, right? But I have to say, I'm a mom, so when I listen to like Bohan, when I listen to Bohan Phoenix talk about how he's like Xiaosun, like, like he's doing good for his mom and grandma, like I'm crying listening to a rap,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like the taming of rap language, but maybe you can give us some context as to the difference between Chinese rap and everywhere else, and answer your own question about, is this really rap or hip hop?
Well, first of all, that's a super big question, and I don't really think I can answer that question for rappers or hip hop artists in China. But in terms of languages, as a Chinese language teacher for over 10 years, I guess I can talk more about the language. So as maybe all of us know, Mandarin Chinese is a tonal language, so it definitely requires different. It's a different art of creation. I mean, from English writing, from English rapping, and that's for sure. And some people might think, and I think it's still a common idea for people who are not that into Chinese rap, they would say that Chinese language is not suitable for rapping, for this form of art. I totally don't disagree. I mean, because we have young artists like not young artists, but young artists like AR, as Wes has mentioned, and also like the earlier generation of hip hop of rappers like Jia Wei or Insar or Purple Soul, Long Danzi. I think their Chinese rapping really fits this form of art. Sorry, I think I'm kind of off the topic. What's your question again?
I think that's great. Whatever comments. I mean, I think people.
Hi, my name's Shahanti. I'm from Los Angeles,
Hey,
California.
Rahansi, I'm really sorry, but we actually have a line of people. So if you don't mind,
Excuse the momentary pause in my internet connection.
It's gotta be China. It's gotta be, Beijing. It's gotta happen. Like, all I can say is do not copycat, find your own voice, find your traditions, find your own rhythms, use all the energy from bang on the pots and the pans around you, and just do that shit. Fuck America, fuck American hip hop, do your own shit, because that's what this is all about. So that's all I wanted to say.
Hey, Jimmy, you gave some really sound advice right there. That was pretty sound. I respect everything you said, bro, because that's hip hop. We don't give a fuck if you offend.
We don't give a fuck. When Fat Beats closed down, they wouldn't let everybody in New York, and I said, fuck it, let's go across the street and we make a cipher. That's it. So I hope China becomes the biggest cipher through that Belt Road, go all the way to Turkmenistan, down to Italy, make a cipher that travels all the way across down to Nairobi to the Yoruba people, and let's do this shit. Anyway, real hip hop, much love. I don't want to take up more of your time except to say thank you, Peggy, thank you, HARIKIRI, thank you, everyone in this room.
Everybody.
Much love.
Hey, well, lastly,
yeah, Jimmy is real hip hop. Jimmy's real hip hop.
Hey, I just want everybody in the room know that I am the cameraman for one of the biggest hip hop founding groups, Salt and Pepper. I am Spinderella's cameraman. So follow the page on YouTube. It's called Official Archives of Spinderella, and yeah, and I'll follow everybody back too. Nothing but love, y'all.
thank you, the both of you. That was really, really inspiring, actually. Thank you so much. I'm just going to reset the room a little bit. We are RADII China. This is RADII CROSSxTALK, China Hip Hop and Evolution. We are talking to Wes Chen, the host of the longest running hip hop radio show in China, The Park, and HARIKIRI, one of China's most sought after producers who has worked with the cream of the crop of the China hip hop scene. So we are letting everyone on the stage now to talk to them and talk about China hip hop in general. Thank you once again, the two of you. It was very, very interesting to hear from people who are in the United States who have joined us and are interested in China hip hop. Now, let's move on to Jia. You had a question. Please keep it to about 1 minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make this quick. How's it going, everyone? Thank you, RADII. Thank you, HARIKIRI. Thank you for all the moderators for having this event. So, all my New Yorkers, got to do that. I'm based out of here in New York, and big fan of your work, especially with Masue and especially with DZ. And my question actually is in relation to the latest season of Rapper China, which I actually did find a little bit underwhelming compared to the other seasons, just because nowadays everything's so commercialized, like you said, and you can only do trap music for so long, before, you try to really elevate the sound. And so actually I appreciated RADII and folks like Smelly D actually, who actually brought in a new sound. So my question for you, Dre, is Like, what do you see in the future in terms of like the hip hop, which differentiates between rap, first of all, because we got to make that clear. Like, hip hop is more than just like those are two different things. So, what are ways that you're trying to explore new sounds? What are you thinking about the sounds across China, and what the future is like for them?
To be honest, like even with like definitions of genres, like to me, like while I got into this whole bit of spotlight from hip hop itself, but I feel like I'm just making like so-called black urban music and just using what I got naturally and sharing it with people here. And I feel like hip hop is just the American side of that, but I'm also working on like Afrobeat, which is like from many different African countries. Then there are people hollering at me for grime and UK influence stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of other stuff beyond hip hop that I still think will really, really please people who are into just this urban style music. So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
I'm working on Chinese Afrobeat right now. It's never been done, but it sounds fucking fire. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
And real quick, like on a broader level, since the talk is about evolution of hip hop in China, like, or other speakers that you can like weigh in on this, like, what do you think is the other sounds that gonna come up? Because like I said, like the latest seasons, everyone's doing trap. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. There's drill happening right now, but again, it's kind of it's still piggybacking off what's going on in the States. I feel like people don't really have another reference point. Like first they see what happens in America, and then they try and use what they got. But there are people who are trying to work just separately from mainstream America, and those are the people who I think don't get heard so much. So the people who are trying to show that they're influenced by like what's going on in France and what's going on around Africa or even Caribbean music. So it's there. It's keep digging.
Yeah, I could jump in with something here because John's talking about watching these reality shows again, and although it was, we have to credit these shows for making hip hop as big as it is in China, but they definitely play a role in the whole non-diverse non-diverse forms of hip hop, because as soon as you make it a contest and mostly about gaining fame, that's when people start not doing things out of creativity, but doing things to achieve a certain goal. So when they see somebody do a certain type of music and succeed with it, then they start thinking maybe I should do that type of thing. And that's why personally I'm not a big fan of these reality shows, and I give a lot of credit to all the artists who choose not to go on the reality shows.
I think it's kind of most people feel they don't have a choice, but like I'm also not keen on the shows, but I just respect the fact that, especially because I'm viewing it from like really close to the artists who go on them and both the guys that choose not to, and I just see what they're all going through. Especially even just the first step is making the decision to go on them. Like it's not easy because they also know that they're limited in freedom. Like creativity.
It makes me think of what you said earlier, Dre, about when they asked you how you sort of keep it creative. You said you said something funny. It's like polishing turds.
Yeah.
But do you feel like some of the listeners or fans out here, maybe like because of the internet era, or because some of the listeners out here don't really have like a deeper understanding about the culture of the music, that they actually like polished turds?
Like honestly, yeah. It's unfortunate to say, but like we were talking about the numbers that these shows are getting, like some of these episodes on these shows are making the Super Bowl look like just casual TV. Like the majority, and especially with how new the music is, like most people aren't, they haven't worked out how to work out what's quality and what's cookie cutter. So, and especially as people were looking for the numbers to be able to say, look, I've made it now, pay me. Like, there's a big element of, yeah, there's a big element of just making stuff just to fit in and then show that you can do it too, as opposed to doing something to show that you're way better than the rest and you're doing something that's completely uniquely you. It's hard.
Okay, right before we move on to other questions, let's play a couple of sounds just so that everybody knows what China hip hop sounds like in this room, and then we'll go on to James. How about that? Peggy?
Yeah. Actually,
Sounds good.
a little technical difficulties. This is not actually playing.
Okay, then actually, why don't we have James talk first, and then we'll queue up some sounds for after he's done with his question and answer. All right. Hey, James, you're up.
Great. Can everyone hear me? First time speaking on Clubhouse here.
Yep. Hi, welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome.
First of all, thanks everyone for organizing. I've been a big fan of RADII for a long time, and also lived in Beijing for almost a decade. So kind of grew up listening to Wes and the park there. So a big fan of Chinese hip hop long term. So I really had a question, and a lot of this has kind of come up kind of tangentially. But my question to both Dre, I hope you don't mind if I call you Dre, and Wes especially is, you know, going to shows in Beijing, for instance, especially those organized by individuals like Nasty Ray, it was clear, at least among those practitioners, as it were, that they were very, very clear on where the sound came from, right? They gave their props to the legends, to the masters that came before them. You had these kind of, I guess, shows where they would mix in a lot of old school hip hop as well as the newer sounds. And I was curious as to, with your work now with these kind of up and coming artists, how aware are they of their kind of inheritance, and are they kind of showing? I sound like an old head here, but are they showing love to those that came before, and they kind of using those sounds, or are they really kind of trying to do something different? Appreciate it.
I think definitely they are. I think especially like Chengdu, even before hip hop blew up, like you'd come to this city and you literally know there are so many people here that listen to hip hop. I think you can see in the way that people dress, and also Chengdu was the first place that I went to in China where on the street I would hear people playing hip hop. I've never heard music from the West played like out of people's cars or in like a small coffee shop or whatever. Like Chengdu was the first. So I think hip hop culture has definitely been firmly rooted in Chengdu for quite a while. And I know that, yeah, everyone, like even looking at many people's tattoos, there are a lot of like the OGs on people's like necks and legs and arms and backs. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of homage paid.
I'm gonna go the opposite point of view here with Dre, but not necessarily China specific. Like to James's question, I think a lot of the there's a good group of up and coming artists in the West who don't study their inheritance. So this is not necessarily a China specific problem. I think it's just like an era issue. But China, the newer era in China probably faces a double level of distance when it comes. One is time and also is culture. So for the ones that do that homework, they receive double props from me. And there are definitely the ones that do, but how much is that appreciated by the new era of listeners? That's the question that I actually, keep asking myself. Because if it was something that, the listeners now demanded, I feel like that would be something that all of the artists do. But because it's not necessarily something that the listeners appreciate that much, a lot of the new artists don't feel like it's important for them for as something for them to do. But good question, James.
Well, if I could actually also quickly follow up, I think that's a phenomenal point about the kind of double distance. And I think the irony in the Chinese case as well is that there's kind of also perhaps maybe a pushback against individuals that might have otherwise been like foreigners in the Chinese context for being maybe too commercial, like Wang Li Hong and like Zhou Jilin, these guys have been rapping, but I mean, they're very commercial, very much pop stars, like sanitized, friendly faces. So I think in a sense, it's almost trying to get away from that sound as well. I wasn't sure what your thoughts were on that.
Hey guys, sorry, we have so many people waiting in line, so let's keep it to one question each. I'm really sorry, James.
My apologies.
No, don't worry. We're still engaging in some technical difficulties with the sound for Peggy, our DJ today. But so let's move on to Irfan. Irfan, you had a question.
Oh, yeah. Hi. This is a really great talk, and I myself am a rap and hip hop fan. And I know one of the roles hip hop and rap played in America is and was a bridge between black and white part of America. And I'm an Uyghur, like from western part of China, and I grew up in Urumqi, the capital of the region. And I know I'm not sure about the sensitivity level of this group, but I know there are some discriminations or misunderstandings between like Uyghur and Big Han Chinese. And do you guys? And I also know that Uyghur hip hop, Uyghur rap, is having some presence in mainland China, in other parts of China. And do you guys think how those raps, how those Uyghur hip hop is received in other parts of China? And do you guys believe it's playing some bridge of between Han Chinese and Uyghur people? Thank you.
I think so.
Yeah, this is a good question, Irfan, and it's an important question, I feel like. They're definitely being well received, especially recently. I mean, the winner of the second year of the show was RADII, and we have more and more Uyghur and people from Xinjiang, you know, taking the main stage. I actually think the Xinjiang rap scene is the hottest, region right now. Whether they're still living in Xinjiang is another question. But as far as their message, I feel like they understand the rules of the game and how the rules might be even more strict from them, but that just to them is another challenge. And I think that the fact that they want to be on the main stage and they want to have a message, that it's just a bigger challenge for them to get their message across without getting themselves in a bad situation. And I think as far as their own, like people who understand their dialect or understand their culture, they have ways of getting certain messages across without being quote unquote sensitive. And the fact that they're doing well now, they have big shows, they have an ever growing audience, is proof to that, I think.
I've got my technical difficulties worked out, by the way, Elaine. So if you want to go ahead and reset the room for RADII China, the floor is yours.
Okay, fantastic. Hi, I'm Elaine from RADII China, and I'm resetting the room. This is RADII CROSSxTALK, China Hip Hop in Evolution. We are talking to Wes Chen, the host of the longest running hip hop radio show in China, The Park, and HARIKIRI, one of China's most sought after producers, who has worked with Brothers and several other incredibly famous people in the China hip hop scene. So Peggy is going to play some sounds for us, and then we will bring up Grace right afterwards to ask her question.
This is Purple Soul. Please follow HARIKIRI Dre. Please follow Wes Chen. Please follow the entire RADII group, Brian Wong, Elaine, Chow, Jake, Newby, and me if you're interested in more China-based topics on Clubhouse.
All right, Grace, you're up.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for hosting this room. I think this is a very good opportunity to talk about Chinese hip hop. And I am a big fan of Chinese hip hop. I've been listening to it for so many years, and I'm a big fan of Harikiri. And I know Bohan is in this room too. So hi Bohan. And I only have one question for Harikiri. Is that could you share us about your creative process? I know you've been working with a lot of musicians in China. What's your creative process? How do you work with them? Since they're every one of them are so different.
Yeah, actually, everyone is vastly different, and I think it also depends on what we're looking to achieve. So, for example, if someone's just first usually working out what it is, what the song's for. So, is it just a club song? Is it something that they want people to, something to work on the internet? Or is it like something really personal, something for the, I don't know, to play at home? And then once we work out where it is and what the vibe is supposed to be, I think then just usually start working out what the sound palette is. So usually sit together, work out like what kind of instruments, what kind of chords are they looking for, and then yeah, usually from there it's pretty fast. Like within an hour we can get a demo done. Especially if it's someone who can kind of sing and write on the fly. If it's not, then we'll just make a so-called quick beat, then give it to them to write to, and then when we uh, meet again, and they've got kind of an idea of how they want to sound on the song, we record it, and depending on how the recording goes, the beat will change sometimes completely. I'll just be like, oh, actually, I think you can make something better. Or just getting to editing. So really, the process is always about making the best song. So it's not really about me trying to flex on beats and them trying to like be God's gift. Actually, it's always like how do we make the marriage between both the instrumentation and the vocal fit together in the best way possible. So sometimes it takes redoing the vocal, sometimes it takes redoing a beat, like maybe it'll be 3/4. But at the end of the day, the focus is always to get the strongest combination. Hopefully that answers your question. Hello?
Oh, hello. Sorry.
Hi.
Yeah, I think my internet cut out for a little bit, but I wasn't sure if it was just me. Thank you very much, Grace. All right, the next person we have up is Raul.
Hi everyone. My name is Raul Rugamba. I'm based in Kigali, Rwanda, in Africa, and I'm a creative entrepreneur. You can see our work from my bio here. So thank you so much for allowing us this. It's a really good platform, and it's part of what we are working on. We are creating a culture and creative industry ecosystem on the continent, and twinning cities between Africa and the rest of the world. So this is a good platform. I wanted to do a shout out to you guys, and I appreciate your work, and I'm happy to collaborate with you guys, the producers, artists, and see how we can bring the work you guys are doing into Africa, and what we are doing in Africa, bring it in China to benefit both artists on both ends and create extra markets for both of them. And we are creating cool products and for those artists. And I'm happy to connect with you guys moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. Why don't we go now to Jia Hao then?
Hey. Thank you so much for having this conversation, and I really want to give a big shout out to Wes. And I was a big fan of the parks for like probably 4 or 5 years. And back to 4 years ago, I was intern in Shanghai, and I watched the documentary was guess part of like the documentary was connect people because of West that called Iron Mike, and that really made me aware of the like part of the culture of Chinese hip hop. Even I was listening to Chinese hip hop for quite a long time already at that time, but kind of really aware to the culture and also see people like Nasty Ray. After that, I go back to I'm currently living in Canada, and I go back to Canada and like digging the craze for so long, and now I having running a record store, and they also I was trying to promoting those like Chinese music in like Canada, and I just have questions kind of like every time I go back to China, I talk to my friends who used to like we're doing a lot of freestyle together, and we're chilling out, hanging out, and then we are like I feel like the young generation like us in China, like people who saying we really love hip hop, but people don't really aware of the culture, the foundation and things, and even nowadays some when you're trying to kind of make people aware and they to separate those knowledge, but people kind of ignore it because people only care about those mainstream rappers and they like the hits music. Basically, this happened like all over the world, but I feel back in China, those some of those rappers have I'm not saying it's like bad influenced, but music became um, not much more creative as before. Like, because people are acting to those mainstream Chinese rapper a lot. But I don't know how the thing's gonna go. But I'm really like really like curious about how do you feel about this West? Like, how do you think about how should we like is it necessary? Is it really necessary to make people in China aware of the like culture of hip hop, and also is he is he like is he like should I say? Yeah, that's it. Sorry.
Great question.
Yeah.
Good question. Thanks for listening to the show all these years. And you mentioned Iron Mike, so I'll shout out Iron Mike real quick. Maybe one of the longest running freestyle battle events that I know of. So this year they're going on 20 years. You live in Canada, one of the biggest freestyle battle events that gets the most views actually comes from Canada, called King of the Dot. I don't even think they've been running for 20 years. So big shouts out to Iron Mike. As far as your question, I think this has been brought up before about understanding the culture or the history. And like you mentioned yourself, this is not just China; it's a worldwide thing. But maybe in China, it's more apparent. And I think it does have a lot to do with how it became popular here, how it became as popular as it is now here. So China has had hip hop acts, b-boys, graffiti artists, DJs, since the day that I arrived, probably even before. So we're talking the year 2000, 2001. But it stayed a very underground scene all the way until about 2017, when these reality shows started airing, and then it went from literally 0 to 100 real quick, no pun intended there. But in most other places, you see a more organic growth. So it grew gradually over time. So most people who are joining would gain an understanding of where it was, where it came from, and where it's going. But in China, because it was like an explosion that, so many millions of people became quote unquote hip hop fans, but their only understanding of hip hop was through these reality shows, which did not do a good job or did not even try to bring any of the historical context of the culture with it. It was actually just trying to create idols that they could monetize off of. So that's just facts. They did create more opportunities for kids who want to be involved in this industry, or who want to express themselves through this art. But they brought a lot of attention without sort of showing the foundations. So I mean, there's going to be a small portion of those new fans who will go do their homework and who will become real hip hop fans. But I think the majority of those people just chase the most recent trends. So when the hip hop reality show is not the most recent trend, then they'll be a fan of whatever the next trend is. But they brought in some people who will become lifetime fans, like myself, like yourself. So this is, that's the way I see how it's going to develop.
Thank you very much for all the wonderful questions so far. I just wanted to mention that we see both Bohan Phoenix and MC Ting Wudong, two very great RADII friends who are in the audience. If you guys want to come up on the stage, just be sure to raise your hands. We're happy to let you on. In the meantime, though, let's move on to Sam Insanity. Wait,
Hey,
I guess
what's up?
Sam, yeah.
Yeah, firstly, I want to thank the moderators of the room, especially Peggy, for starting this topic. I think that back in 2017, it was the first time I was even aware there was a China hip hop artist. When the Higher Brothers came on the radio, started booming and getting popular here in Southeast Asia. Like, I live in Malaysia. We don't really hear a lot of artists coming from China from the hip hop scene. It's always Chow and Lee Hom on the radio or the karaoke menu, So like, I was quite surprised, like, whoa, China has a hip hop scene, and this was only 3 years back. And I think that I watched a documentary of the Higher Brothers being interviewed, and yeah, they were just just hustling and just struggling in their small room trying to make music. And I think that they had such a struggle getting over the China's censorship at the time, I think. And yeah, like, I really wish that we could hear much more of China's hip hop here in Southeast Asia, because I'm really sick of the commercial music. They don't sing about anything real. Everything they produce is like, oh, it's all about making sales and money off music. But then comes China hip hop, and boom, wow, you hear such real, such what do you call that, live lyrics that really, like, you can relate to, and I think it's amazing. I do wish that there are, like, to hear more of China hip hop music in future. And like, I'm just wondering, this is my question, like, what other ways are you guys actively trying to do to get China's hip hop music out to the world? Because like, the last I heard was from 88 Rising 3 years ago, and then it's like, I never heard any since. Like, our only way is to like go through YouTube.
Wes, Harikiri, do you want to take that one?
Okay, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to answer it. I think content-wise, I think like people releasing it is mostly the labels, and one of the big problems is that most Chinese labels are really focused on releasing music in China. So 88 Rising isn't a Chinese label, so they're American, which is obviously why they understand how to push music on YouTube and in all the kind of Western-friendly mediums. But I think, yeah, I'm also considering how to help show, like, shine a bigger spotlight on all the music that's coming out of here, like out of China, and give access to more people. Because also there is the language barrier too. I think a lot of people don't speak Chinese, so they wouldn't really have the tools to be able to find it.
Yeah, sadly, we rarely hear China's hip hop music here in Southeast Asia. It's always dominated by, Billboard Top 100. So unless China's hip hop does breach the America's Billboard Top 100, then we won't really hear about it.
Sam, I have two suggestions. One is you should subscribe to Wes's radio show. It's in Mandarin, but it'll definitely give you the local insights. And Wes, you can tell us how to subscribe to that on the different streaming sites. And then second, Sam, a shameless plug, subscribe to RADII. Our editors are always trying to discover and highlight the work that the artists, hip-hop artists and all sorts of music artists are doing here. And it's all in English. And we've got some amazing mixes that Jake and Brian and the team have put together. So at least we're all trying to work together on this, and hopefully that provides some perspective.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. So we have about 20 minutes left in this room. So we'll move on to the next question with Yanni, and then maybe we'll play a couple of sounds and then probably end with our last four people on stage. So Yanni, take it away.
Hey everybody, thank you for letting me up on the stage. I'm super pumped to be a part of this. I actually just went on to radiichina.com and it looks super amazing. I'm really excited to go over your website and take a look at what you're putting up there. I lived in Chengdu and Shanghai for about a year in total. And I'm really curious about the music scene in China and how hip hop has really grown in China. And I'm curious if you guys know why, in general, why is Chengdu kind of like the mecca and the center of hip hop in China today?
Hey. I think one of the reasons why Chengdu is really popular for hip hop, I think, is because the sound of music that's popular in hip hop, like most popular in hip hop around the world, is obviously trap, and Chengdu is definitely at the forefront of this particular style of hip hop in China. So yeah, I think it kind of just time, place, and all the energies pointing in the same direction has kind of made Chengdu kind of is the epicenter for trap, at least. And I think trap is the most popular form of hip hop right now. It's just now it's taken on the broader title. But definitely Beijing and Shanghai and like Xi'an, Changsha, all these other cities have definitely got crazy things going on in hip hop. But I think just because of really just how much weight Chengdu is putting behind trap music, especially, is kind of flying the flag right now.
And I also wanted to add this, Chengdu is always like the culture and music center in southwestern China. So not only hip hop or rap, there was one of the best rock bands in China now. They came from Chengdu, or they maybe came from other provinces around Sichuan province, but they would go to Chengdu to root there, to develop from there. So Chengdu is always has that foundation of audience, or maybe have the right environment for music to grow up.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna play a little bit of AR.
Yeah, just AR was the rapper that Wes referenced earlier, who was talking about like taking a less commercial path. So this is pretty fun.
最近又赚了一丢丢，最近又好了一丢丢，考场我录了一丢丢，性格我录了一丢丢，走路是晃晃悠悠，拿出我的霹雳枪，飘飘飘。
Say that any rap song that references Chinese food is my type of song. So that's AR, everybody.
All right. Yes, I completely agree with that. All right, Dan, you're up. 贾老外.
Yo, hey guys. My question is kind of a linguistic question, actually.
and it's kind of related to what the previous person said. Why did Chengdu become so popular? And I feel like part of that is actually because of Sichuanhua. Like, if you guys remember, 谢帝, what is his name? Fat 谢帝, back in the day had like, 老子每天不上班, 什么什么, in Sichuanhua. And I guess my question is, for Harikiri and Wes, who have been, working with these rappers, I feel like their dialects, their Fangyan, is like a really important part of their almost creative identity. And I'm curious, when you work with these rappers, do they experience like pressure, for example, on Rap of China? Like I remember on Rap of China, there was some really cool, for example, there was that guy, Nau Kara, and he just kind of busted out with like some Xinjiang language in the first season. But I'm wondering if there's like pressure from the government to use Putonghua, to use Mandarin. And just like what your experience has been working with rappers in terms of whether they can speak their native dialect or if they're supposed to speak Putonghua.
I wouldn't say there's a overt pressure. I think it's implied in the fact that people need to understand what's being said. So I think, because I think also China's very proud of like how many minorities there are and all the different varieties of Chinese there are. But I think there's a lot of implied pressure in that. People really need to understand the music so that they can push it beyond the song just sounding good, but also actually meaning something and resonating with people. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I've never heard any rapper tell me that he's received any government pressure to not use their dialect. So that's not something I've ever heard of. Obviously, like Harikiri said, if you want to reach a wider audience, maybe you want to use a dialect that's more understandable by everybody. But at the same time, if you want to touch somebody more deeply, you might want to use your dialect and use more like regional cultural references. So, they both have, their pluses and minuses. And I think, the whole Chengdu, as you mentioned, why Chengdu and Sichuan dialect, a lot of people know about the culture there, but even though they might not be from there, and it's still understandable. So, it hit a balance of like something that's unfamiliar, but still understandable, but yet, strangely kind of familiar. You know what I mean? So I think, to have a dialect and to be able to speak Putonghua is a plus versus, maybe rappers from Beijing, they only have Putonghua with a very thick Beijing accent. You know what I mean? But, the Beijing Hua can bring that a lot of like cultural part of it too as well. But yeah, I think all those things come into play.
I agree.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hey, I just wanted to mention for a second that we have MC Ting Budong on the stage now. He's a big friend of us here at RADII, so I just wanted to say hello. Hey, MC, or hey, Jamel, sorry.
Yo. 干嘛呢? What's up, y'all?
Whatever, Jamel.
Yeah.
What's good?
Yeah, so Jamel, feel free to also like jump in on any of these. I know that you're definitely an expert on the hip hop scene in China as well. We're down to our last two questionnaires though. But so why don't we go to Tony, and yeah, Jamel, if you have any comments, please also take the stage.
Hey, what's going on, Dre?
Hey, what's good?
All right, look, man, this is my question. All right, so you really think Higher Brothers really breaking America have any type of influence on over here?
I think it's a loaded question. It depends on who you're trying to influence. Because definitely all the Asians in America definitely know about Higher Brothers. But whether we're trying to say whether Higher Brothers have impact on the Black community, definitely no. I don't think anyone in America where everyone has all the like Western artists. I don't think anyone's looking for music that's not from the West.
Definitely.
But
nobody I know give a fuck about it. Hey, but look, so all right, man. So look, so as always, they like to say themselves that they're breaking America, and I don't think that's as credible as, you know what I'm saying, as they claim themselves to be like, okay, we're the first Chinese rapper to like break through America. Like, that is not factual.
In what way is it not factual? Well,
Like, they like to say they
made
it. They made it for people to like, okay, like mainstream people over here, like who listen to rap. Like, I don't think that's factual.
I can say that Higher Brothers did a tour in America that probably, you know, sold more tickets than, you know, a lot of rappers that are in America and from America. So if that's not,
but it depends on who you compare it to, though. They talking big, though. It's not like you got compared to small rapper, of course. And also, when they go sell out in America, it's most Chinese people go to the show. I'm not trying to hate. I'm just saying, I'm trying to put out facts. It's most Chinese kids be at the show, and they do small venues. I live in Atlanta. I know where they perform at.
I think
that's all true.
It relates
but
to
they are the first Chinese act that can pull that off, though, right?
Pull it off as go to America, perform with Chinese people, like, that's not really pull it off, though. I mean, they're hot, don't get me wrong. They're hot in their own way, but as that, they like to say, okay, we're the first to be in America, as like that, in that type conversation, I don't think is a credible like that. Just an example, Made in China got 20 million views on YouTube. Key-Safe, BGMA got like 70. That's not even comparable. You know what I'm saying?
Keith is from LA.
Huh?
Oh, I mean,
Keith is from LA.
He's from Korea. He's not from LA. He's also from Asia. You know what I'm saying?
He's Korean. His English is he's from
Rockstar, living rockstar like yeah. Oh my.
As they say it to be. You know what I'm saying?
I still think, but I think we've answered the question now. I think definitely we know that the market outside of China is definitely aimed at other Asian people, and we can't take away from the fact that they're definitely the main export out of China for this type of music. And then on the other side, I do think that they've kind of put a light on Chinese music in some way that hasn't been done before. Because, for example, I know that before them, we would say that Chow is the biggest thing for hip hop. Like, they definitely changed that conversation. So there is something to take from it.
Yeah, I just would really want to add. I mean, first off, huge shout out to Wes and Dre, both for being a part and really imparting such like wisdom and historical knowledge in this conversation. And then also definitely a huge shout out to Peggy for organizing and bringing this room together. I see a lot of folks in here. And then also a shout out to, Tony, who was just up. People shouldn't get it twisted. Tony is a deep hip hop head, and him and Dre definitely have a long history. And he's an incredible like hip hop photographer, who's also part of working in this like space at Bridging the Gap. And he's, I think he is bringing a real question into the fore. I think objectively, I definitely agree with what's being put on the table as far as like what Wes and Dre are saying is objectively the Higher Brothers, they had an international impact. They changed the entire conversation around appropriation, around, trap music in China, Chinese kids with dreads. They changed the conversation about what hip hop in China was around and is around the world. And that includes amongst, majorly Asian people in America. I mean, lots of black artists make it only with black artists in America or with only white kids. That doesn't invalidate what they're doing, And so I definitely wanted to add that in. But then I actually had a question just because we're rarely in a room with people that kind of cross these generations of hip hop culture in China. And Wes, I mean, I remember running into you in like 2008 and in 2006 and 7 at like Yugong Yishen and, with like, Ma Ke and Insang and Insar, and you guys were playing Purple Soul earlier. And just, and Dre, I know you've had a story past in Beijing as well. but have also come through to this trap era. And if you could speak a bit towards those generational differences, and in particular, what you think the impact of that kind of, there was a real crackdown, especially around, to bring up Insar, shout out Jawe, but a real crackdown around the lyrical content of a lot of those artists of that kind of first underground wave that then we saw, really explode in 2016 and 17. And so if you guys could speak some to that, I think, both for my edification and the edification of this audience, it'd be really, really, really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it was something that we all saw that could very potentially happen. We all hoped that it wouldn't happen, but this is the rules of the playing ground that we're on, and I think some people got sacrificed in that process. What effect has that had? Well, you can say that people who really want to be mainstream artists out here these days are even more careful than ever because they know, what consequences, there could be if they cross whatever line. And, this has changed the scene a lot, you know what I mean? Not even just the crackdown on lyrics. I think there's been like crackdowns on live houses and entertainment venues in different cities in China, which is also, I think, a reason that kind of brought Chengdu to the map because it was a much more open and, kids were free to party in a bigger way than, in maybe the way it was in Shanghai or in Beijing 10 years prior to that. So yeah, all of this has influenced not just like, lyrical content, but even the ability for certain cities to build their own little scene because of, performance venues and like, getting bulky for events, all of that stuff. It's definitely molding the scene out here in a certain way.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we are almost till ending. We are closing this room around 2-ish. So before that happens, though, I would love to bring up Kristen onto the stage. So Kristen, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Peggy, for making organized.
Hey, Kristen.
And Elaine and Brian and guys. So thank you guys. I'm actually in Shanghai now, and I own an events company, entertainment and sports company here in Shanghai. And I have ran into many, of course, local artists, and they need a lot of help getting put on, and they need help with, just getting the proper support. And we talked about Rap of China. I've been here 11 years. I remember when that happened. That was crazy. But like Wes just said, in big cities like Shanghai, we got cracked down a little bit with hip hop events. There has been a target on us a little bit out here, just to be honest. But and also you mentioned Iron Mike. Big shout out to Dana and them. Dana has been working hard in the hip hop community forever since I came here. And I just want to know, what is your advice, everyone on the stage? What is your advice for the new artists? Not to get thrown into these really bad deals, because that's what's starting to happen now. It's almost, history repeating itself. What happened with hip hop in America? People just getting into these really bad deals. What is your advice for new hip hop artists out there now? How can they get on, especially now in the pandemic, where touring and certain venues aren't as open yet? What is your advice for them? Thank you.
Hey, it's an interesting question, actually. I think, honestly, there is always the kind of situation, almost a trap, where all these companies know that all these young artists, everyone's looking for money, everyone's looking for fame, and there are people who are able to promise that, like all of these TV shows are promising people the opportunity of fame. But they also know that if I'm giving that to you, then you got to give me something back. Little do most people realize is that they're signing their life away with this, like trying to take the opportunity. So I think just one of my main thing would be just to advise patience. Like people can take their time with it. You don't need to make your first move to jump on a TV show before you, for example, do the mixtape route before you start doing local shows or in your shows in your own city or around your region. Like I feel like that's the first step. But I think also that most people are ignoring that and just trying to jump straight into quick fame and to hit the ground running like that. And I think it comes with danger. So yeah, just taking things a step at a time would be
totally right. And obviously have a lawyer before you read your contract, before you sign anything. And I would tell them also that that this whole industry is evolving right now. Not just hip hop industry, but the music industry. Like we're moving away from these major record labels and into the streaming era. But that's not to say that the streaming era and these streaming platforms are going to be here forever. And this is just going to be the way it is from here on out. So I would just say, like, these are not your only options. Explore other options, and have confidence in your art. Like, as long as you're confident about your art, you won't give it away for nothing. You will be patient if you're confident that what you're making is worth owning on your own. But for those who aren't as confident and just want the quick bag, then that's going to be their fate, and maybe that's just what they want.
Yeah, totally agree.
Well, with that, I'm Peggy Lou. Hi, Kristen. Now, Kristen, I know you're in Shanghai, and we're doing Clubhouse in-person Shanghai meetup, so I'm fully expecting you to organize a fun night out with some hip-hop, with some dancing at one of our new nightclubs that's popping up all over the place, one on my block, yay! So thanks, Kristen, for showing up, and thank you to Harikiri, Dre, thank you to Wes Chen, thank you to all the amazing RADII China. Let's give it up for RADII China for bringing this room together. And I'm a little biased because Brian's a good friend and so is Elaine. So clap, clap, clap for them. I want to remind you all to follow everybody on stage, especially Rita, who's also a really extensive hip hop columnist. And also MC Tingbudong, I really want to meet up with you. Let's go dancing. Come visit me in Shanghai. Come visit Kristen and I in Shanghai. Let's have a party. Please follow on Clubhouse. Everybody here, click our icons, hit follow, and also add the bell. And that way you know when we're scheduling the next RADII China event and next China RADII China room, and when we're speaking on stage, when Harikiri is speaking on stage, when Wes Chen is speaking on stage, when MC Tingbudong, hopefully you'll rap for us sometime, we will be able to notify you directly on your app. And because there's no easy way to search on a calendar in the app, we have put together a group calendar for all China topic rooms for you. If you go to tinyurl.com, tinyurl.com/China on Clubhouse. That's tinyurl.com/China on Clubhouse. And you'll find really interesting topics on music, on your questions answered about moving to China, about sustainability in China, about China-Africa bilateral relations, about China-UAE, China-Latin America, and much, much more. So please do follow me, Peggy Lou, follow everybody on stage, take a look around at who's in this room, and I'm going to close out the room with Fire Brothers and Harikiri, Nothing Wrong.
I brought study. Oh shit. Oh shit. Carry on the beats. 我很确定，我具备了天赋，从你看我眼神就悄悄。